Come through, Queen. I wanna see ya. Come through, Queen.
Hi, everyone. It's Dan. As we mentioned last week, we are taking this week off. It is a long weekend here in the States, so Brendan and I are enjoying that. But as promised, we're putting something on the main feed. Obviously, our Patreon has been around for a long time. It started back in early 2020. And one of the very first series we did on that was recapping all 11 episodes of the only season of Real Housewives of DC. So we are dropping here this week the recap of episode 1. Now that it is readily available on Peacock, we figured more people have their eyes on it. Back when we recapped this, we had to actually buy it on Amazon Prime, which was insane. So you can easily enjoy that now. But besides DC, I mean, our Patreon has been around for years at this point. There are 114 bonus episodes there, 204 pre-shows. And if you head on over to comethroughqueen.com and hop on over to the Patreon, you could sign up now and you get access to all of that right away. It's not like you only get what drops this week. So if you enjoy this DC recap and you want to complete the journey with us, head on over and take care of that. But if not, we will see you again soon. All right. Bye.
Okay. Come through, Queen. I wanna see ya. Come through, Queen.
Hi, everyone. It's Dan.
And Brendan.
And this is a Patreon bonus series recapping Real Housewives of DC.
I'm so excited.
I had low expectations coming into this, and I couldn't be happier.
Okay, so let's unpack that for a second, because I think the reason you had low expectations might be because the show was canceled after one season.
Yes.
But the reason it was canceled was not because, as far as I know, the performance of the show or the quality of the content. The reason it was canceled was literally because the FBI was asking Bravo for footage from the show because, spoiler alert, two of the stars were
Snuck into the White House. Which, the beginning of this season kind of sets that whole concept up in terms of it's not money that rules in DC, it's access to power.
Access to power. It's so interesting watching this show. So I watched it 10 years ago. It's been 10 years since it premiered.
Yeah.
It premiered in, I think, October of 2010.
No, interestingly,
earlier?
August 2010.
August.
And Beverly Hills Season 1 premiered in October of 2010.
Wild.
So this actually is a predecessor of Beverly Hills.
Wild. And Beverly Hills kind of changed the game Housewives-wise, but we don't need to go into that.
I do want to say DC, from looking at Wikipedia, got better ratings than Dallas and I think even Potomac currently do.
Oh, wow.
And better ratings than a lot of the... But this was a different time. This is like comparing like music sales
right.
back then.
Right.
Because I think all of the Housewives got better ratings in these days.
Mm-hmm. And back then, so the Real Housewives of DC, I just think it was such an interesting political time, obviously. And the way that this focuses on politics really heavily, and most other housewives don't want to touch politics, is very interesting.
Okay, so as soon as I was watching, I was doing research while watching. I was pausing because I didn't want to miss a second, hitting up Wikipedia. They filmed this in 2009.
Okay, yeah.
Because the White House Correspondents' Dinner was like November 2009, and that's the end of the series essentially.
Well, no. It was not a correspondence dinner. It was, what's it called? A state dinner.
Oh, okay.
It was a state dinner honoring India.
Yes, which is why Mikhail was dressed up.
Yes.
in a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We only have 5 wives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of surprising because I feel like episode 1 was giving us friend ofs already.
Yeah, there's a few important friend ofs. Like Paul is an important one.
Yeah.
There's another one who I'm trying to think. Oh, the Republican lobbyist.
Edwina.
Edwina is kind of a friend of.
Does she reappear?
She reappears later, yes.
She seems so thirsty for the camera.
I know.
And then Stacy's friend Erica, who the moment she hit the screen, I thought I recognized her from somewhere.
Okay.
But then I tried looking her up and I couldn't there was not too much on her.
Yes.
I
would say out of those, Paul is kind of the most important friend of on the season.
Yeah.
Edwina appears. There's some. I'm telling you, there's some wild stuff to come. I think this episode brought us a lot of wild stuff that I didn't even remember, and then there's like a lot of wild stuff just like in the future.
Okay. So it's okay. First of all, I have low expectations because most first episodes are not too exciting. Mm-hmm. But I'm forgetting that this is a new franchise.
Right.
So usually a new franchise will try to start off with a bang to like set the stakes.
Mm-hmm. We're starting off with the American Polo Cup.
Yeah. Well, first we're introduced to the five women.
The 5 women.
Individually. Mary Amons is the first one.
So Mary Amons, as I was watching this, I was like, she's kind of getting the star edit, like as like the one that like the Kyle Richards, like the relatable girl that we're kind of following.
But she's the one that I couldn't really pin down. Like, what is her shtick, other than being, I guess, as you're describing, the relatable one.
I think she's the relatable girl, and like I think this was a thing that we had more on Housewives back then, where like you need one that like the audience will latch on to relate to and see themselves in their shoes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the Kyle Richards thing, the parallel to me really stuck out when you then see Mary with Linda, and Linda would be like a Lisa Vanderpump type.
Okay. We'll jump to Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Linda is the elder.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, she was early 50s when this was filmed.
Yeah.
I looked it up.
I mean, I looked up. Kat was in her 30s.
Right.
Which is wild to me. Because she seems older. Here.
She does, but it's like...
I think British people seem older.
And... never mind. It's like how...
This is the Patreon bonus. There's only going to be like a few people listening, Brendan.
Like how Charlotte Aubrey looks older. It's like, I think there's like a British sensibility makes people seem wiser.
Yeah. I thought it was very interesting. We don't have a lot of interracial relationships on Housewives.
Right. And then A-Bong.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't think they're still together, sadly.
Yeah. So we have her. We have Stacy, real estate agent, DC, the one black housewife of the 5 of them.
Yeah. I think like she is the one whose appearance on the show aged the best.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she seems to me the most normal.
Yes.
What, did you not pick that up when were you more of a Mary stan back in the day?
I was a Cat stan.
Oh.
But when I look at some of the things she says and like that kind of stuff, I'm like, ugh, God.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's like near the end of this episode, and I can't wait to get to that. Oh my God. But speaking of Kat, we meet her and her 2 daughters.
Yes. And her husband.
And her husband. Her husband, who correct me. She had a relationship when she was really young, seemingly had kids with someone else, and then married him recently.
Married him like, I want to say like 18 months before this was filmed,
yes.
and moved to DC. And is like the fish out of water in DC.
Except she and the kids are loving it.
Yes. They're out in the backyard playing.
Yeah.
Some of their houses, like, they're not as like extravagant as other housewives' houses, but they're like homey, and I like want to like be there.
Her tagline is one of the best taglines of all time.
Remind me.
I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time.
That's good.
It's so good.
That's good. If only the like production value. I need to look up what the production company was because like their taglines and their title card just looks. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me. Remember a few seasons back of Jersey where like the audio was off on the taglines, like you couldn't hear what they were saying.
Right.
Like that had the same energy here. It was a very messy like twirl for the camera during the taglines.
And they don't hold anything.
They don't hold anything. Like we have like a giantess and a short lady.
Yeah, and it's like they're like above the White House randomly.
Like we got to be in size order. Cat's in the middle, and she's like to the side with her elbows sticking out.
Right. I also wonder when this was greenlit, like when they said let's get cameras up in DC, and like because it's interesting because it did come at a time when a lot of the country thought like DC was sexy because we got the Obamas just got in there, like we like were loving life. Obviously not all over the country, but like a big portion of the country. And I wonder when it was when actually greenlit.
Yeah, I mean I would say Obama had been elected at the very least because if he's elected in 2008 November. And I'm thinking we're shooting summer of 2009.
Right.
Okay, so only 5 women to meet.
So we didn't talk about Mikhail.
Oh, Mikhail. Oh, how could I skip over her?
Or how Linda calls her Michaela.
She is a wild one.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, speaking of Linda, I don't think we've entered a Housewives season where it's like, these women already, like, Linda already hates Michaela.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say they all seem to know each other, except Kat seems to be introducing herself to everyone, and Stacy doesn't really seem to know them. But I think Mary, Linda, Mikhail all have connections.
Yeah. And I think all of them have remained friends, with Linda, Stacy, and Mary being like the closest. And except for Mikhail. Mikhail's off. Spoiler alert: Mikhail's off with what's that song?
A Journey.
Yeah.
And then where's Kat? Is she even in this country?
I think she's back in the UK.
Okay. So we get the 5 different intros, and then we have the Polo Cup.
Yes, the American Polo Cup. Which Linda says it's not good for my business and it's not good for the city. And then she refers to it as that little goat rodeo.
Yeah.
I think that Linda would like low-key be a legendary housewife if we went on.
The problem is like we only have them for 1 season.
I know.
So they're so rough and tumble.
But like
not camera ready.
Some of the lines coming out of her mouth are good.
So Linda didn't really jump off the page to me, but now that you are selling her to me.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, the one that jumped off the page to me the least was Mary.
That's interesting because rewatching it last night, I was like, they're setting her up to be like the star character. Like I said, the relatable one.
Okay.
But I also like I don't know. I was like comparing her to like Kyle Richardson. I might be right or wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Mikhail at the Polo Cup, bopping around with a frenetic energy that we have not seen before.
And she's the type of person, she would be great at improv because she's the perfect yes and.
Yeah.
Like when she's talking to Edwina and Edwina's talking about her like job as a lobbyist, and like Mikhail's yes-anding and saying, "Oh, I lobbied too," and then she calls her like her fellow girl lobbyist, which like perfect.
I think Edwina is the first person that we land on. I mean, she's just a Republican lobbyist,
Right?
And then I think throughout the course of this episode, we slowly uncover everybody's political affiliations. I think Mikhail seems to me to just go with the wind.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of them kind of do.
Yeah.
In ways. And I think that's the thing about access to power. When you have access to power, regardless of like who's in power, you go with it.
Yeah.
It's very Ramona vibes.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, that was the Polo Cup. The Cat was there, just like making the rounds. Mm-hmm. We meet Paul Wharton.
Yes.
Who, he too looked familiar to me, and I looked him up. And then it seems like he was a coach on Made on MTV.
What was Made?
Remember that show where they would like a kid would want to become something?
Right. Yes. So
that was
Manila Luzon was on that on a drag queen episode.
Oh.
As a coach.
Made would air at like 11 a.m. on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And its heyday was when I was in college. So you can only imagine that was like perfect.
Waking up.
Rolling out of bed.
Get a coffee. Sit on the couch.
Yeah. So he definitely felt familiar to me. And he also is kind of like a connector in terms of the housewives here.
Right.
Like he has relationships with multiple housewives, which is exciting. Okay. So we go back to Mary's house. We have a fingerprint lock. She has 25 children. I mean, she is like a Bronwyn predecessor.
She has a child named Lolly.
Yeah. She's the eldest, the elder child.
Who has the same style and tries to steal her clothes.
Yeah. I do like this for her, like the so many children. Mm-hmm. Because like, although that's a current thing, like back then, only like, I mean, Kyle Richards too had a bunch of children.
Yes, all my children.
Okay, but it's Mary's birthday.
And Lolly gets a confessional.
Oh yeah, Lolly gets a confessional. Yes, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. And this is also like, this is still the era where they were also doing the thing where they pull people to the side and do confessionals like
on the spot.
And there's one with Tarek at the American Polo Cup earlier in the episode.
And he could not be happier.
I know.
He was like a pig in shit to be on camera.
I mean, to this day, I'm pretty sure I heard that on Airbnb you can stay at his house and he has like Real Houses of DC memorabilia.
Good. Has he remarried? Do we know?
I don't think so. I think he's living just like a sad, sad life. Mikhail was his peak.
But that might be like for the best for him.
And for society.
Yeah. Okay. Mary's birthday party. Now this is where things take a turn for me. Because we are sitting Stacy next to the one other black person at this party. Mm-hmm. I don't recall. No, well, I'm misspeaking because Linda's boyfriend is there.
Right.
But
was it Ted Gibson, celebrity hairstylist?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mary just keeps saying like, you two are going to be friends.
There's so many cringy parts of this, and then like Mikhail starts talking about the Congressional Black Caucus dinner.
Yes, and she's like, "Are you going?" Like, I'm going.
What the fuck? And then Mary, once she starts getting a little more turned, she starts doing the girlfriend.
Oh my God, yes.
And saying, "quote unquote," salons need to integrate, and we have different hair, different needs, but why do we need to be in different salons? And then jumps to the Obamas. It's so all over the place.
We were hanging from the chandelier when this scene was airing. Like I did not expect to get this much.
I know.
I really didn't.
I know.
And like while we were watching it, we were saying like, could you imagine living in a world where this still existed? I think it would be the most popular franchise.
DC Housewives, yeah.
Yeah. Because like we're in a world where like everyone is talking about is politics. Mm-hmm. Oh God! Wow. Okay.
So Linda starts with Mikhail.
Oh yes.
And talking about her weight.
Which this was interesting too, because recently on the podcast I talked about how we have not really talked about weight and eating disorders much on the Housewives, and this predates Jules, predates anything going on Beverly Hills.
Predates
Jackie. So, like, this is probably the first time on any of the franchises.
Yeah. It's wild. Just like I know this didn't jump out to you last night, but Linda like going for the jugular all over the place this episode.
Yeah. Now, the more I think about it, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Kat's husband has been shooting Joe Biden all day. It's to see this when we just had Super Tuesday, not to like put a timestamp on this, but when we just had Super Tuesday and what happened with Biden there, it's like to see him being in this episode.
I am truly watching this. Like sometimes we've said this. Sometimes like things find you when you need them. I do think Real Housewives of DC has found me when I need it most.
Yeah.
We got Joe Biden wearing his aviator sunglasses in a car, filmed by Kat O'Malley's then husband.
I know, but the funny thing is, like, Kat O'Malley's then husband isn't like the famous of the, like, you know how there's like the famous not housewives photographer, White House photographer from the Obama era that like
it's not him,
is on Instagram all the time. It's not him. It's a different one.
I know. You would think this is him, the way she speaks.
So he compares North Carolina to Deliverance at one point.
Yeah.
I wrote that down for some reason.
Yeah.
But it just kind of shows, like, Kat's attitude about the U.S. in general, which is interesting.
So I only know Deliverance. I don't know if you are going to get this reference. If you ever saw Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spent My Summer Vacation, like the Tiny Toons movie, because they do a Deliverance thing with Babs and Buster. Mm-hmm. When they're like rolling down the river.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. That show was so good. It was always such a treat to watch.
But that movie in particular, I can, like, you know, when I'm re-listening to audio that we have recorded.
Yeah.
And I'm lip syncing for my life. I can lip sync for my life to that entire movie.
You lip sync to your life sometimes when I'm in conversation with you, and you're like, it's like you're guessing what I'm about to say.
I mean, am I a winner, baby?
Yeah. I will say one more thing about Tiny Toons Adventure, or whatever it was called. It was always such a treat when the original characters, like the OGs, would like be there as the teacher.
Yeah, they're the professors.
I loved that so much, and it was like it would only happen like once or twice an episode where you would actually
not even
like,
once
see
or
them.
twice an episode.
Yeah, and I loved it.
Yeah,
it was so good. Okay, so Mary's husband is a style setter.
Which, like, them trying on the outfits, truly setting the style.
Being honored by this publication that I wonder if it still exists.
When we were watching, Alex was familiar with the publication.
Wow.
So I think it does.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this was like a really quick thing, but it was another event that both Linda and Mary were both at.
Yeah, and
Mary
Paul
also
was there. I'm pretty sure. Paul Wharton?
Oh, yeah, Paul was... Yeah, because that's where Paul talks to Linda. Mm-hmm. I mean, Paul's the true...
And that's when... Is this
Sheree Whitfield of this.
Is this when Linda kept on insisting that she loves Mikhail? And then telling people that she loves Mikhail with pairing that with talking about her eating disorder?
Yeah.
Or her supposed eating disorder, rather?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think we get to Janet Jackson's personal chef. Unless you have something else.
One more thing. And actually, I think at one point Paul came to the modeling agency, Linda's modeling agency.
Yeah.
And they're looking at like a rack of clothes and they say it's not a recession rack. Like meaning that it's like expensive garments.
Yeah.
Just like that stuck out to me as something that's like wild because this was filmed like amid that.
Like crawling out of the recession.
Like not even crawling, like months after like the bailout.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's get to Stacey's house.
Now this is what we need. And I'm surprised that, you know, the conversation about diversity on the Housewives has come up in the past year more so than in previous years.
Yeah.
And like this is what we need.
This is like truly having like tone deaf white people talking their asses off when they should just like shut the fuck up.
It was so good. And I'm glad it wasn't just Stacey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we had Erica. I'm glad we had Shirley. Mm-hmm. I'm glad we had Chio, the Janet Jackson's personal chef.
Right.
who we learn has also cooked for Tyra Banks.
Tyra Banks, or Kat does not like Tyra Banks. Kat thinks that Tyra Banks is hideous.
But not how she looks. Just she is hideous.
Wild.
And then Kat starts doing like a Tyra impersonation, which is just kind of like her impersonation of a black woman.
It's truly wild.
It's so
bad. This literally paired with Mary earlier in the episode when she got drunk and started like saying girlfriend over and over.
Yeah. So, luckily, Mary is here too. And we get a conversation about comparing Bush to Obama.
Right. So, Kat's husband got some sort of award for his photography. And because he had done photos for both Bush and Obama, he sent both Bush and Obama invitations to this award ceremony. Bush showed up. Obama didn't.
Yeah.
But, like, Obama was currently the president.
And Bush was just hanging out.
Yeah. And Kat was mad about the fact that Obama didn't show up.
But then also, she talked about inviting both of them to their wedding.
Right.
And Bush RSVP'd and Obama did not RSVP.
Right.
And then that's how we like start going into George Bush was a father figure for Charles. George Bush is a good man.
Right.
A gentleman.
Right. And this is a quote from Stacey. Stacey, and I think at a confessional, or maybe not a confessional, said, you should respect your leaders by their policies, not by whether they RSVP to your wedding.
Yeah.
Stacey was doing really good confessional work during this part of the episode.
So we get this from Kat, who I don't care too much about like where she lands with politics since she's like not from here anyway. Like it's like a little irrelevant to me.
Yeah, go vote for like Boris Johnson or
Yeah.
whatever.
But Mary chimes in about also liking George Bush too.
As a quote unquote as a person.
As a person. So what was interesting about this is I feel like at this point George Bush was not yet on like the painter's rehabilitation tour.
Right.
Like I feel like the feeling on George Bush like year one of the Obama years had not come around, especially to where we are at now, where
people didn't start like liking him for bad reasons again until like Trump was in the picture, really, right?
I mean, you got to remember it's 8 years. I think it was a long road. Mm-hmm. Like people were liking him in between, but I don't think people were liking him as much as Mary and Kat were in this episode in 2009.
I know, but fucking access to power is what this show is about and what these people care about most. And they had some sort of access to George W. Bush, so they like him.
Yeah. I love this franchise.
It's really good. It's a really interesting time capsule of exactly where we were as a country at this point. And, like, the feeling and like that kind of stuff. It's so interesting.
There's 9 episodes and then 2-part reunion.
Yeah, and the reunion set is really well done, I will say.
I cannot wait to see Andy interact with these women.
The reunion, I remember the reunion being really, really, really good.
I also want to like go back and were they ever on Watch What Happens Live?
Yes, definitely. And I think I could be wrong. No, maybe not. I thought for a second that Kat had been at the Watch What Happens Live New Year special, but I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong. There was a lot of blonde women there.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing about DC I ever knew was Kat and Luann.
Kat eviscerating Luann.
On the Watch What Happens Live Royal special.
Yeah, and I mean, like, as we see, Kat's not a perfect character by any scope, and I think I looked back on her a little more fondly than like now that I'm watching this. I'm like, ugh. I didn't realize some of the stuff she said, but like that Watch What Happens Live with Luann was good.
Yeah, I do also want to say it's interesting how Kat walked so Lisa Vanderpump could run.
True.
Because they did film at the same time, but technically DC premiered first. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we had Kat for 3 months before ever truly meeting Lisa Vanderpump.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to also touch on was there are clips of this online, but I've mentioned it several times before, but the Real Housewives of DC appeared on The View to promote the season. And obviously because of how things went, because of the White House crashing was such a big news story, most of the interview focused on that. And you could tell that the other wives like resented that. And I think if you go through clips of the entire media tour and press tour they did leading up to this, you would see a lot of that, especially from like Linda.
Yeah.
But this is where the like famous Whoopi versus Mikhail Salahi feud comes from, where Mikhail Salahi accused Whoopi Goldberg of assaulting her backstage at The View or something. And there's like, it's covered over 2 episodes of The View where they like appear and then they talk about it. It's interesting to go back and watch.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so excited to watch more. I'm excited to talk about it with you. And I would love also to hear people who listen to this, whether they're watching this for the first time or reliving it now 10 years later, to like chime in with their opinions as well.
Yeah.
So that is it for this bonus episode. We have much more to come with DC, and I'm so excited to continue this journey.
Yeah. Go leave a review on Patreon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
I wanna see ya come through, Queen.